Welcome back to this video, and we are learning accessibility, and we are doing that by building this quiz app we have right here. So in the previous video we looked at steps 1 to 10, and now let's look at steps 11 to step 20. Okay, so what we want to start by doing is changing the H1. So change the font color of the H1 to this color we have here. Let me just copy it and then paste it like so. Oh, not font color, it should be just color. Okay, so now as you can see, the color has changed. Next up, what we want to do is we want to set the font size to this value right here. Let me just copy it. Okay. All right, on to the next one. So for step 12, we want to enable navigation on the page and want to add an unordered list. So first, let's add our unordered list item. Okay, so we need 3 list items. So I'll just say li. Okay, and then okay, so if you're wondering how I did that, if you're on Mac, hold Option and Shift, and if you're on Windows, hold Alt and Shift. Okay, so Alt Shift, then you press down, or Option and Shift, then you press down. All right, so for the first one, we want to give it the text info. The second one will be HTML. The third one will be CSS. Now we say that the list items should be wrapped in anchor tags. Okay, so the list items, these ones right here, should be wrapped in anchor tags. So let me see. A, like so. Let's do the same for the rest. Oh, okay, so let's start again. So what we want is we want to create 3 list items, right? So let's create a list item, just one list item, and we want this list items to be wrapped in anchor tags. Okay, so like so. All right, so now let me just hold Option Shift down, or Alt Shift down if you're on Windows. Okay, now for the first one, let's just give it info. The second one, let's give it HTML. The third one, let's just say CSS, and this should work. Yes, it does work. Okay, so for step 13, what we want to do is we want to use the angle bracket selector to target the unordered list elements within the nav element. Okay, and use flexbox to evenly space it. Okay, so what this does is that it goes into the HTML, and just a moment. Okay, so as you see, we have an unordered list item here. Okay, and we want to target the and this unordered list item is in the nav elements, right? So we want to target it. So the way we do that is to say nav, oops, sorry, not here, in our CSS, I want to say nav, want to bring this symbol here, okay, and then want to bring our UL, bring your curly braces, use flexbox to space them evenly. So first, let's say okay, so first let's give it a display of flex, okay, and then want to say justify content, and want to say space evenly. Space, is it space evenly or spaced evenly? Let's see. Yeah, space evenly. All right. Now, as you can see, we have our text here, as you can see, but because of the color, it's hard to see it, but we'll work on that later. All right, as this is a quiz, you need a form for users to submit answers. You can semantically separate the content within the form using session elements. So within the main element, which we have right here, what we want to do is we want to create a form with 3 nested session elements. So first, let's create the form element. Okay. And inside the form element, we want to give it 3 sessions. Okay. Once again, Option Shift down or Alt Shift down. All right. Now we have 3 sessions. Then make the form submit to this URL here using the correct method. So let's say method, we should give it a post method, and we should also give it an action with the value of the URL. Okay. All right. Okay, something is wrong. You should give the form element a method attribute to the value of post. Method attribute. Oh, so method should be method attribute with the value of post. Okay. All right, so that works. Now for step 15, to increase the page accessibility, the role attribute can be used to indicate the purpose behind an element on the page to assistive technologies. Okay, so the role attribute is part of the Web Accessibility Initiative, WAI, and accept preset values. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to give each session element the region role. Okay, so the way we do that is just to say role, and let's give it region. Or I can just copy this and paste it here. All right, every region rule requires a label which helps screen reader users understand the purpose of the region. Okay, so one method for adding a label is to add a heading element inside the region and then referencing it with the area labeled by attribute. Okay, so add the following area labeled by attribute to the session element. Okay, so I will just come here and I will also click on Option, or you can click on Alt if you're on Windows, and then holding Option or Alt, click on where you want to type, because it's the same thing we're going to type. So instead of typing them one separately, I'll just click them and type them all at the same time. So I'll say area labeled by, and then I'll give it, the first one will have a value of student info. The second one will have a value of HTML questions, and the third one will have a value of CSS questions. Okay. Then within each session element, nest one H2 element with an ID matching the corresponding area label attribute. Okay, so first we want to give each one an H2 element, H2, and we want to give it an ID. The ID should be equal to this right here. So let's just copy it. You know what? I'll first copy this, paste it here, and also paste this one here. All right, now copy this one and use it for the ID of the H2 here. I'll also copy this and use it for the ID of the H2 here, and I'll do the same for CSS questions as well. All right, now give each H2 suitable text content. Okay, so for the H2 here, I can just say HTML, no, student info, should be student info. Okay, because once again, this is what we are building. And for the next one, I can just say HTML and then CSS. All right. Okay, typeface plays an important role in the accessibility of a page. Okay, some fonts are easier to read than others, and this is especially true on low resolution screens. So what we want to do now is we want to change the fonts for both the H1 and H2 elements to a font called Vedana, and we want to use another web safe font in the sans serif family as a fallback. So let's say H1 and then H2. So we are selecting both the H1 and H2 elements, and we'll say font family Vedana, and we'll say sans serif. Sorry, your code has you should use H2 element selector to target the H2 element. Okay, but I have H2 here. Change the fonts for both H1 and H2 elements to Vedana and another web safe font in the sans serif family as a fallback. Oh, okay, I forgot this one here. So also add a border bottom. So let's do this. So H2, add a border bottom of 4 pixels solid, and then this color here, let me just copy it. So border bottom, yeah, so as you can see, we have the border bottom displaying on our page. All right, so for step 18, to be able to navigate within the page, you want to give each anchor element an href corresponding to the ID of the h2 element. Okay, so what we want to work on is, you see right now, this, if I click info, it shows info. If I click CSS, it takes me to the CSS page. If I click HTML, it takes me to the HTML section of the page, right? So that's what we want to work on. And the way we do that is to give this anchor tag here, we want to give it an href. And the value of the href should be the value of the ID of where we want to send it to. So in this case, this is the h2 and it has an ID of student info. So you're going to give it the same value. So we just copy this and use that as the value of the href here, right? Let's do the same for these ones as well. Okay, so for the HTML, I'll just copy the value of the ID here, and then I'll post it here. And then I'll also do the same for the CSS questions as well. So I'll copy it and then paste it here. All right, so as you can see, this one tends to, so normally this link will bring you to another website, so it works. Okay. You should give the first A element an href of hash. Oh, so you should bring the hash. Okay, so the same thing for these ones as well. All right, so next up, filling out the contents of the quiz. Below student info, add 3 div elements. Okay, so we add 3 div elements. Okay, so again, hold Option and Shift and then press down, or hold Alt and Shift and then press down. This will duplicate the line, whatever is on the line. Okay, so we have 3 div elements and want to give each one with a class of info. So a class with a value of info, I'll just copy this and paste it. Then within each div, next one label element and one input element. Okay, so let's say label, element, and we also have input element. So let me just copy this. Okay. All right. Now what we want to do is want to link each input to the corresponding label, right? So we have an input here, we have a label here, and want to link each input to the corresponding label. And this is important because it provides assistive technology users with a visual reference to the input. Okay, so the way we want to do this is by giving the label a for attribute. Okay, so let's give the label a for attribute, and it should contain the ID of the input. So this also means that we should give this, done by giving the label a for attribute, which contains the ID of the input. So which means the input should have an ID. Okay, so this session will take a student's name, email address, and then date of birth. Okay, so let's say student name for the first one. Okay, student name for the first one, and let's do for the second one, I want to do student email, and let's give the input an ID of student email. And let's also do the same for the third one. We give the label a for attribute with a value of date of birth. And we'll also give it, let me just copy it. We'll give it an ID of date of birth as well. Your first label should have an appropriate text content. Okay, so let's give the label some text content. Let's say, let's just say name. Let's say email, and let's say date of birth. Okay. All right, so we'll end it here for this video, and in the next one we'll look at step 21 all the way to step 30. So see you in the next one.